Now I know last week I promised the truth about who shot Harambe, but since then I have realized that the zookeeper in question has already been through enough and was simply following orders, so I shall not disclose the individual's identity. What does warrant further discussion, though, is who orchestrated this whole sequence of events and why. We are all too familiar with the incident that shook the world on the 28th of May last year, when everyone's favourite silverback was tragically shot just one day after his 17th birthday. And in its wake, we saw the wave of celebrity deaths, political shifts, and general weirdness that came to define 2016. How this all ties in with the death of Harambe has yet to be determined, but three things I can say are that it is ongoing, and has been going on for longer than we thought. Back in January of 2002, Harambe's mother Kayla and his brother Makoko, along with half-siblings Caesar and Uziri, died from accidental exposure to chlorine gas at Gladys Porter Zoo in Brownsville, Texas. 11 years later, Harambe's father Moja would just suddenly drop dead from heart disease in 2013, and the following year his son Harambe was transferred to his final home in Cincinnati Zoo. But it did not stop with him. Kicking off 2017, his grandmother Josephine was euthanized on the 9th of January at the age of 49. The staff at Miami Zoo stated that Josephine could hardly move, even to reach for her favorite treat, and that medical examinations showed several abnormalities that indicated systemic terminal conditions that had no chance for positive outcomes or hope for recovery. Now this sounds pretty straightforward, but once you factor in that it came only months after her grandson's shooting and was on the same month as the chlorine gas incident, things get a bit fishy. What was the connection here, and what did she know? Further down the track, just 1 month before the anniversary of Harambe's death, his favorite band, the Gorillaz, released their latest album, Humans, on the 28th of April. This came out 6 years after their previous album, The Fall, and closed the longest gap in their discography since the release of Demon Days in 2005. The album that closed the previous gap was Plastic Beach on the 3rd of April 2010. Working from the previous pattern, this may have been in conjunction with a cataclysmic event on the 3rd of May 2009. The nature of said event has yet to be determined, as gorilla-related news was drastically underreported until last year. And on a side note, the release dates of the other albums may yet hold some clues, and there could even be warnings written into the songs themselves. But that's for another time. While the musical side of things raised more questions than answers, there was a more clear-cut case closer to home on the day itself. At Perth Zoo, 2 orangutans escaped from their enclosure on the 1-year anniversary of Harambe's death. The duo ran amok for 15 minutes before voluntarily returning to their quarters. Now, their intention here cannot have been to break out, otherwise they would have gotten further, or at least shown some resistance to going back inside. Compounded by the date on which this occurred, one can only conclude that it was an act of protest. There's definitely something going on here. But what? And who could possibly be pulling the strings? Last year, many had suspected former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to have been behind it all, especially after a leaked email surfaced stating that Harambe is a huge threat to our campaign. I want this gorilla dead by the end of the week. But once the election results came in, I started to suspect that this email might not have been written by Clinton herself. The more likely scenario here is that this was a falsified email that was sent out by the hacker who got into her private server. Because why get your hands dirty when you can get the Clinton campaign to kill the gorilla for you? Being carried out by a different organization, and especially given the urgency in that email, would explain why they took a different approach and shot Harambe instead of poisoning him like the rest of his family. And while it is clear that the Trump campaign did benefit from this, he wasn't the only one. The rabbit hole goes much deeper than that, I am afraid. To elaborate more on the political shifts of 2016, they were in favour of far-right nationalistic interests. We had Brexit in the UK, the return of Pauline Hanson to Australian Parliament, and of course, the election of President Trump. Not only have three of the West's major powers embraced isolationist policies and politicians, but a lot of these celebrity deaths were of British and American actors and musicians, depriving them of non-political voices and driving them further into that isolation. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who could possibly benefit from splitting up the West like that? First off, the use of hacked emails is a telltale sign of the Russian interference we were warned about. And if you are listening, Robert Mueller, you would do well to look into the Harambe incident for yourself. It may shed some light on your collusion case. But it is unlikely that the Russians acted alone. China may have had a hand in it, or possibly ISIS, or North Korea, which has been getting increasingly confident by the day. Worse still, it is likely that the four are working together. I know this is a lot to take in. Hell, it would seem pretty far-fetched if they were not actively taking steps to cover it up. Just last month, a man by the name of Rich Higgins, who had served as the Pentagon's director for strategic planning, was fired on the 21st of July this year after writing a memo stating that Islamists ally with cultural Marxists because as far back as the 1980s, they properly assessed that the left has a strong chance of reducing Western civilization to its benefit. What more can I say, people? A man was fired for proving that the international communist conspiracy is real. We are through the looking glass, people. The Red Menace is as real as it gets, and they are on the move once again. They are doing more than just putting chemicals in our water. But there are too many alternating factors here to form a clear picture of where it's all going. How did the deaths of these captive guerrillas play into the grand scheme of things? I cannot exactly tell you just yet, but I will be doing further research and keep you updated as the situation unfolds. I have already attempted to reach Harambe's known associates for comment, but have yet to hear back from Mondika, Gladys, Jomo, Samantha, Lindsay, Mara, Asha, Andrew, or Chewy. Either they are too scared to speak out, or Cincinnati Zoo is trying to keep them quiet. I'm Connor O'Loughlin, and I thank you once again for tuning in to Alternative Factors. I know this was a rather heavy bombshell to drop on you, especially while everyone is saying North Korea this and Charlottesville that. So next week I'll try and calm down things a bit with a simple movie review of Ghostbusters 2016. Until then, stay woke, people.